Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Sports. The Springbok season has officially come to an end. The Bok coaches are back in the country and are currently enjoying rather than enduring. Although I think for us here, I think he does endure his breaks. You know, he's somebody who's an absolute workaholic and will want to be already sort of getting back to business next year. But the Boks are back, and now I've got an opportunity in the next few weeks to kind of really look back at the year. And we're going to be diving into the Boks year in a lot of detail over the next sort of week. We're going to be basically doing reviews of all the forwards and the backs, for example. We're going to be doing reviews of the way that we're starting to play, for example. We're going to be doing a deep dive into sort of the depth chart as well, and really have a look at exactly where SA Rugby is. But today I just want to talk a little bit about sort of overall, was it a good year for the Boks, for example, and could it have been a better year for the Boks? Now, very few teams ever go undefeated in a year of rugby. You know, it's very, very difficult to do. And I think the biggest sort of feat that the Boks had was going basically only losing one game away. You know, we traveled really, really well. Now, yes, who we played against away, for example, you know, we didn't have to play New Zealand away or Ireland away, but you're still, you know, traveling in different conditions and hostile crowds is difficult, as we saw in that Argentina game. Now, in terms of sort of the scorecard, the report card that we're going to give Rassie Erasmus, we're going to break the year into sort of three different segments. The incoming series, which was obviously 2 games against Ireland, 1 game against Portugal, the Rugby Championship, and then the Autumn Nations series. Now, let's have a look at it, shall we? So the first things first we had was the Ireland series. Now, this was going to be a seismic clash. And it was about proving who was the best team in the world. Because for a lot of people, you know, I think for South African fans, they sat there going, well, we won the World Cup. So, you know, that point has been proven. But Ireland, for example, came in it after winning the Six Nations. So, you know, it was still considered one of the best sides in the world. And if they were to come and beat South Africa in their own backyard, then they would have an argument that they say that we are a better side. We weren't the better side in the World Cup, for example, but we can beat you. We are better than you. And the worst possible result, I suppose, in terms of not giving us a lot of information, happened. First of all, what a game in Pretoria. The Boks, electric, absolutely electric, and already looked like a different side. Really, really good pressure, and outplayed Ireland, to be perfectly honest. And I think in many ways, the effort we put in that first test was evident in the second test, where I think we couldn't quite get ourselves back to that level. And this is a stark reminder of how difficult it is to continuously play at the highest of levels. And that's why sometimes you might not perform at the same level the next week, because you might still be suffering a little bit from the week before. And, you know, the Boks had opportunities to win down in Durban. We weren't as accurate as we wanted to be. And you've got to also just give credit to 2 phenomenal drop goals from Kieran Frawley. 1-1, and I think you sat there. The main takeaway, if you're a rugby fan, is I think everybody basically was agreeing, yep, that's the 2 best teams in the world right now. That is the standard right now. Now, towards the end of the year, we started seeing New Zealand, France sort of get back to sort of something close to that standard. But I think most people agreed at that time of the year, top 2 best teams in the world. And I don't think a draw was the worst result. I think overall, I think we probably played more rugby. I think we just needed to see out that Durban test. We then rotated completely, and so started Project 2027. We went to Bloemfontein and Portugal, and completely rotated everything. And we saw debuts, we saw different combinations, for example, and we saw a match which started off very, very weirdly. A red card, for example, down to 30 men at a stage. But in the end, despite some Portugal resistance, a very comfortable win. And the main thing was getting debuts. And, you know, we'd already seen, for example, Sasha Fine-Zulu feature in the Island series. But we started to really see the likes of Apele Fassi, Kuhn Horn came off the bench, for example, Morne van den Berg. You had Davies for the likes of a Pepsi Buthelezi, Jan Krobela, who's now becoming sort of a bit more of a sort of a bit of a mainstay in the sort of the setup, really. You saw players like Andre Esterhuizen getting his chance, but then getting a red card. We saw Lekanya kind of being brought back in. And so we saw a lot of changes. We saw like a Ruan Fenton, for example, Ben Jason Dixon, all these kind of players sort of coming into the mix. Then it was the Rugby Championship. Now, for me, there was one goal for the Rugby Championship: win it. And we were going to be starting, you know, we had to take on Australia in sort of 2 away tests, and then welcome New Zealand. Now, you know, in theory, go over, beat Australia, for example, and then come back and see if you can beat New Zealand once, and that more or less wins you the Rugby Championship. We did take a bit of a rotated side to a certain degree in Australia. We saw Satpam Ngomazulu starting both those tests, and that was a big moment, in terms of saying, right, well, here's the future is now. Morne van den Berg getting a start as well, looking at different combinations. Apele Fassi starting to get more opportunities at fullback with the continued injury to Damian Willemse. So we definitely started to see us evolve during the Australian tests, which we won quite convincingly. Then the two big tests against New Zealand, and to beat them back to back was huge. Yes, I think it maybe showed that New Zealand aren't quite where they want to be under Scott Robertson. He was under a lot of pressure, I think, before his end of year tour. But a New Zealand side's a New Zealand side. And to back Sasha Famigomazulu, for example, showed the continued sort of want and need to evolve as a team. And a couple of big decisions. And we saw some players coming through towards the end of the Rugby Championships, like Haroon Nokia and Albert Lowe. Players who were taking their opportunities and keeping themselves strongly in the mix. We also saw, PSDF Toy continue to play at such a high level. Sia Khaleesi continue to sort of show how he is still, very much good enough and fit enough to be playing at this level. But we also started to see some players being phased out. Trayvon Ikane being left out, for example. We started seeing Jaden Hendricks or Grant Williams getting bigger roles. So we started to sort of see that bit of a hybrid of wanting to win, but also looking to try and build depth. We then went away to Argentina, played in apparently one of the most hostile environments we've ever played in, and we lost. And it was the first loss of the year from a non-sort of top, two sides of the world, and it stung a little bit. It did sting. But, at the end of the day, I think Argentina played really well. And I think looking back in hindsight, we're now realizing this Argentina side is actually really, really good. And there's probably not much shame in actually losing to it. I do think they're a top 5 best team in the world. They were, 3-4 points away from beating Ireland. So I think they could become a top 4, top 3 side in the world in the next few years. And a week later, we then put them to the sword in Mbombela. Probably our best performance of the year, arguably. Maybe that first Ireland test, but that Mbombela test, we just looked so good, so comfortable. The tack looked really good. We could have scored more tries, but as a unit, we started really looking like we were gelling. And then it came to the end of year tour, and again, the priority number one was to win all 3 games. The first time we'd done it in over a decade. And the quality of squad we took very much showed us, right, these are still our top players. And it kind of almost showed the youngsters, right, listen, you guys are not there yet. And also, you're not going to get debuts and caps for the sake of it. You've got to earn your way into the setup. So we've now sort of used our 51 players, and I think it was Cameron Honeycomb became player 51 that we had used. But this end of year tour was very much the core group. If we were to select a World Cup squad of those available, those were sort of the players there. And there were players out. No Francois Herbert. Damian Willemse continues with his injury struggles, for example. No Lourdes Diaga. So there were a couple of big players missing. But it still gives us an idea of what our best squad kind of looks like. So looking back at the year, especially in the end of year tour, I think we could have played a bit better at times, but results-wise, you can't really complain. So a year, 11 out of 13 wins, 51 players used, a rugby championship. We probably achieved everything we wanted to achieve, bar winning that Ireland series. That drop goal, probably the difference between what could have been, in my opinion, basically the perfect season. So very, very happy. And I think as Rassie Erasmus, he'll be looking at that year going, perfect. We achieved everything we wanted to achieve. We've built a bit of depth. We've had a look at players. We've now got a big group together that kind of understand what they need to do. We've got a lot of information about the older players and where they are. And the fact that Cheslin Colby, PSJ, the Toy, Evan Etzebeth, all older players in their 30s got nominated for World Player of the Year. Jesse Creel, for example, getting into that dream team. And, also show you these players are not going anywhere. And that, I think, was an important thing to learn as well. That they are still as hungry as ever to keep contributing to that Bok jersey and to try and get themselves to 2027. Whilst we also saw us build depth in basically every single position. The only position I'd said when it comes to the end of the year tour we hadn't really built depth in was tight head. Then Wilco Low came in for the injured Frans Malherbe and ended up getting 2 tests. Thomas Totoy ended up getting 2 tests, one at loose head, one at tight head, both of which I thought he was very good at. So I don't think there's any position where we haven't really built depth. We used 4 different fly halves throughout the year, for example, a position we didn't have depth before this year. We've now got options. And so I don't think there's any position really where right now we're going, ooh, that looks like a problem. And that, I think, is the best sort of way of sort of really saying that we've had a great year. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.